So today I did something that I have never before done in my entire life. Now, I have gotten cold before. I've gotten teeth chatteringly cold before. But I have never experienced cryotherapy before. Now, going into this, my thought was, sign me up for the coldest experience you have, And, you know, I'm not worried about standing around in a little chamber with a little bit of cold coming around me or whatever. So, the time allotted was between 3 and 4 minutes for the in the cryo chamber, and the technician said that there's like low, medium, high, or beginner, intermediate, advanced, and she said I can because this is my first time. The highest she can go basically is the intermediate, so we can do that. Like, okay, we'll do the intermediate. So you stand inside. This is at iCryo Burleson, and you stand inside there, and basically you watch a. They have a light bar that kind of gives approximately your progress in there, showing when you're done. Now she could have turned on some music for me. I opted not to have any music, but basically there wasn't really anything to do except standing there and feel cold, and so that's what I did. And of course, you can look around at the a bit at the interior of the space. It's not very big; it's pretty small. And you can look up at the top. You can look down at the floor where there's sort of icy, snowy crystals or whatever. Toward the end, in fact, it kind of was shaking loose some kind of like snow type things almost. It seemed like so. That was almost like standing out in the snow at that point. But anyway, so as time progressed, I started to feel quite cold. Now, my teeth weren't really chattering that much. I was kind of getting into that sort of zone of starting to feel a little shaky, I would say. And my underneath my neck, underneath my jaw, kind of neck area, started hurting. And I was like, this is kind of strange. And later, I asked the owner, and she said, or I mentioned it to the owner, and she was like, did you shave recently or whatever? And it's like, okay, yeah, I did shave this morning. So that's probably what that was. But yeah, so by the time my time was up, I was very ready to get out of there. I was uh, it was definitely unpleasant, I would say, and I was definitely happy to get out of there. Um, so would I go for the coldest blast next time? I don't know. It might depend a little bit on how how shall we say how much I've forgotten the experience this time. One thing I did think about was that I believe my wife would truly hate it. It's a very unique experience to stand there, you know, dressed in shorts, just being cold, and not a lot else to do. Now maybe some music would have helped a little bit, and I think having a little more something like to do or to like really something like to listen to a podcast or something a little bit like that to kind of get your mind off of it, to get something a little more interesting going on, maybe a screen to watch. Something like that I think would help a little bit. So there was something to think about besides just the fact that you're cold. Um, but yeah, definitely some of that fight or flight response of like, you know, this is crazy, this is too cold. Sort of the internal feeling of I'm going to die. Not not like I'm probably sounding a little too dramatic. It wasn't like a hyper dramatic experience, but your body, I think, like normally if you were out in the outdoors, right, and you felt that level of coldness and you were dressed that scantily, you would be like, I think your subconscious, your lizard brain, your whatever would be like, you got to get out of here, or you're going to die, right? Like that's the trajectory when you're cooling down your body that fast. That's the trajectory that you're on, basically, right? So like you're on the path to freezing to death unless you step out of the chamber. So, they did have a technician around there the whole time. The door wasn't locked. You could always get out. It wasn't unsafe, but just in terms of like what you intrinsically naturally feel, I would say. So, but yeah, it was interesting. I mean, it felt kind of different. afterwards a little bit. It was kind of a, I think sometimes in the winter, if you're someone who works outside and you're kind of cold part of the day, you come inside, it's nice and warm, you feel so sleepy and relaxed. I think it's a little bit of that same effect that you get, sort of a, if relaxed feeling is quite the right term, but yeah, it's kind of an interesting. I would say this: I do think it is a lot less painful, probably, than what, at least in the initial. I think it's a lot less painful than a cold plunge. Now, I've not done like a real ice bath cold plunge, but um, you know, just in the shower, you bump the knob all the way to cold, and just stand there during the winter, and just boom, suddenly it's like cold water is just pummeling you. Like that, it's not that level of shock. You get to, it's a little more, it's more gradual, and it's not that level of just like, whoa, that you would get from that. So I do think that it's, in terms of pleasantness, I do think it's probably easier to do than a cold plunge, is my guess. Um, but yeah, it's, would I, if say I had a chamber myself, would I make it a part of my regular routine? Kind of interesting question. Like maybe, you know, um, I can see how that. Like, let's say if I had a membership at iCryo or one of those places, and going in there, doing the, doing the cryotherapy, and then doing the sauna, maybe switch back another, maybe do both twice or something like that. I can see that being pretty nice, really kind of cycling your body through heat and cold. Um, Now, here in the Texas summer, if you're outdoors playing pickleball, something like that, I do put my body under some heat stress. So, I feel like I do get some of the benefits of that at times. But the cold, I'm not much for like, taking the ultimate like, taking icy showers. That's really not my thing. I've tried it. Um, remember when I was younger, I tried it as I was maybe, early 20s, late teens. This was during the winter in Kansas. And I remember going to a social event afterwards, or like a Bible study or something, and just kind of being like cold the whole night, basically. I was like, this is lousy, like. Um, so now I do recall that when I was traveling around rural Thailand, that we would go into these villages, and often what they would have in terms of showers was basically just, you know, a barrel of water with a dipper or something like that. And so basically, you took cold dip showers, and this was up in kind of mountainous areas a lot of times, and so it wasn't like it was super hot up there. It was, the water was usually pretty. I mean, it was a bit of a, it was a shock, right? Like it was not like cold plunge cold, right? But it was like very refreshing, shall we say. But, it was interesting. It didn't matter how nasty you felt after a day of driving around on curvy roads, squished into a car with a bunch of other young people. Um, after that shower, after that cold dip shower, I mean, you just felt good. Just, it was great. So, that would be a point to the contrary to where I say, yeah, there's a certain kind of cold experience that I have found to be very refreshing. So, so there is that. But yeah, that is my little experience of cryotherapy. By the way, if you're interested in cryotherapy, red light therapy, um, infrared sauna, IV infusion, compression therapy, check out iCryo. I do marketing for them currently, and they've got a really nice place.